Good morning, Buffalo, Western New York, and Southern Ontario. This is Bishop Michael A. Badger, Senior Pastor of Bethesda World Harvest International Church. And it is a beautiful, sunny, little chill in the air morning here in Western New York, but it's good to be in Buffalo. And we're going to have a great show today. As you know, this is Educational Saturday. We've got conversation for you. So get your coffee and relax by the radio, or I'm on Facebook. You can go to Michael Badger and check me out on Facebook. Make sure you like and share. And we're just going to have a great conversation. But before we do, I want to recognize our sponsors. First of all, the Legal Eagles. They'll be on next Saturday. That's none other than my man, Terry McKelvey, 716-424-2070, and John Elmore, the $3 million man that's shaking up the legal community and representing not only the 514 families, but he's representing Western New York, and him and his daughter are doing just great work in the legal community. So for all of your legal needs, Terry McKelvey, 716-424-2070, and John Elmore, the $3 million number. And then Dr. Frances Aluza, who is just a tremendous gift to this community. You can reach her at 716-200-4122, 716-200-4122. These folks here make this show possible. They're the supporters of the Vision of Hope broadcast. We need you to support them. Well, I got none other than Sam Rafford in the building with me. Sam.
Good morning, Bishop.
What's going on, man?
It's a great day to be alive, Bishop. God is good. No complaints, man.
Yeah. I see you got your Bills hat on, man. I don't know.
I'm loyal, brother.
Me too.
I'm a homer, brother. That's it.
Yeah.
But even Stefan, though.
I was saying, too bad Stefan wasn't loyal. I mean, that had to be he must have backed them into a corner that they didn't. I mean, a $31 million hit, your number one receiver.
I got the second-round draft pick.
And next year. Yeah, and we giving up a fifth and sixth.
Yeah, a fifth and sixth. And then, interestingly, he gets to Houston, and Houston basically cancels the contract, puts all the money on a one-year contract, so he's a free agent next year.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He really made out like a bandit. If everything holds true to form, I mean, he's a great player. I don't know.
I don't know how we replace him, though. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm just concerned that, we lost 4 of the 6 captains on the team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You lose Poyer, you lose Trey, you lose, Morris, you lose, come on. I mean, at some point, that's going to be a whole new locker room. You don't have a division winning, culture without that kind of leadership.
Well, but they went all in. For 3 or 4 years, they went all in for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, now they pay the price.
You got to pay, and they'll come. Hopefully, as long as you got Josh Allen, there's the potential. Once you get out of salary cap prison, that you could have a team again. But it's unfortunate.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. But anyway, we digress. Man, listen. What's going on in the educational space? We are getting towards. Let me see. This is April.
Yeah.
So we only got 2 more months.
That's right.
And so what's happening in the educational space?
Well, I think 2 things. Let me start off with the good news. I'm saying
Okay.
So. The good news is that I think in comparison, we are probably we're in a good space in terms of the things that are going on.
Yeah.
So when you look at it in context, now if you go look at everything today on the front page of the Buffalo News is an article about graduation rates. We'll talk about that in a minute, right? So if you look at that by itself, you still like, oh my God. But if you look at that in the context of where we've been and where we're coming from, I would say, one, I think we got a good superintendent. Superintendent is transparent. She is
love Dr. Williams.
Yeah,
love Dr. Williams.
She's collaborative. She's responsive. So she's moving it forward. I think the Teachers Federation president, much more collaborative, much more willing to work, much more reasonable.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So you got an environment where people, and then the board is doing things that are important. You know what I'm saying, that they hadn't done historically.
Yeah.
The board switched over to this thing called student outcome focused governance model.
Yeah.
They brought in a consultant that says that you have to spend at least half of your meetings focused on student outcomes.
Yeah.
So all that coming in here and celebrating all the good stuff, pretending like the data ain't the data, y'all can't do that no more. Y'all gotta look at the data and talk about the data and make sure everybody know the data. Be transparent about what the data is.
Right.
To me, that means we're in another culture.
We've never seen that before.
Yeah. This ain't cash, rumor, and don't bash the brand.
Don't bash the brand. Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge the good news is that we're moving in the right direction. We're trending in the right direction. We got a long way to go, but the culture is changing. The people are changing. And, the board is doing some of the right things. Like, so for example, you were part of the board is doing these, they doing these focus groups where they're going to listen to the community. I mean, what do you think about the focus group they're doing?
I thought it was really good. Shout out to board president Sharon Cotman, who was the facilitator of it. But one of the interesting things is that everybody pretty much had the same, especially the number one issue. Pretty much everybody had the same number one issue.
Well, which focus group was this, so people in the community know which focus group you were part of?
Well, I think these were religious leaders.
Clergy, okay.
The clergy, right? And basically all of them, the number one concern was that our children be able to read, write, and do math on grade level and graduate college and career ready. That was the number one issue. I mean, and across the board, everybody had that. Suspension rates was an issue. Diversity was an issue. Having especially more black male teachers. So that whole diversity issue was there was pretty much consensus in a lot of the areas.
Well, so I think you really make the point. So first of all, the fact that they understand it is important to go to a key stakeholder group in our community, like the clergy, and make sure that you got their buy-in, you got their awareness of what's going on. You listening to them. They didn't come talk to y'all, right? They came and just primarily ask some questions and then listen. Right. This wasn't the politician getting up there giving you the speech and pretending like everything is rosy. This is here's what are your thoughts about these things, right?
Right.
And that's under the guidance of a consultant who, has success with using this model. So, I think, given that, that's a good sign that we're moving in the right direction. But as we get into the discussion about what today's what's on the front page of today's newspaper, you will see those issues that they're concerned about is really where we're struggling at. You know what I'm saying? Let me just say this before I kind of go off into that newspaper, because I think it's important to note that there's some solutions out here that I want to make sure I don't forget to tell everybody. So there is there's a program at the University of Buffalo right now, the Graduate School of Education, to where if you come into Buffalo, if you want to be a teacher, you can come in a 5-year program. You can get your bachelor's, your master's, and your teacher certification all in 5 years. Wow. You know what I'm saying? It's a residency program. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So there are pathways for us to get more black male teachers. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Right now, and you can get them quickly. So my point is that there are a lot of solutions out there, and I want to put a shout out to the UB Graduate School of Education, their teach program, because I think that is something that's going to lend itself to people who got bachelor's already.
I was going to say, if you have a bachelor's already, then what is it, 18 months?
Yeah, you go to the residency program. And so my point is, there's a lot being done, and a lot has been done over the last 4 or 5 years that we've been doing this work. We've been partnering with UB real closely for the last 2 years, and they're putting out products that will help solve these problems. So again, it's another shift in the landscape. We talked about the need for diversity, but then you got to figure out pathways to make that possible. Mm-hmm. So there are pathways going on to make that possible. So that's the good news about what's going on.
Yeah. Well, and so I know the Educational Equity Task Force has has been working diligently on these issues, and we've got a summit coming up pretty soon.
August 9th and 10th.
So, like you said, there's a lot of efforts going that are underway. The thing that I'm excited about is the transparency. Now, I think with that, there's a risk factor involved, because when people really understand, and that was interesting at the table that I was at, as the conversation went on, and I began to share with them, no, this is the realities here. It changed the mindsets of people, because normally what people that are not involved in the educational space in any way, a significant way, they will talk about parents' involvement, and we got to get these student behaviors under control. That is the fruit, right?
Amen.
That fruit, you pick it, it's going to grow back, all right? The root is how the system is set up.
Yes, sir.
The root is the very, model that the Board of Education put forth of putting parents and children first, is not being adhered to. The whole way that this system has morphed into a employment system that educates children, and it morphed into that. It didn't start out at that. Right. It's morphed into that as unions have became more powerful. And it's good that we now have someone else in there, a fresh face, maybe new ideas, maybe more open to what's going to make the system better for the children who are the product.
Listen, let me grab that point there, because I think it's something really important about that morphing, right?
Yeah.
Because I think there are two things that people who don't follow this day to day won't appreciate the historical context for which things are happening. So I want to talk about, one, the morphing, and the second thing I want to talk about the urban think tank, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the morphing. We're going to go later on, we're going to look at some of the data on the graduation rates, right? And you're going to find out the schools who are successful are the schools like City Honors, Hutch Tech, Da Vinci, Performing Arts, the schools who have some kind of criteria for getting in there, right?
Yes.
The only one that's not in that group, that used to be in that group, that makes it's painful to even say it, is McKinley. McKinley's now down with the South Parks and the Riversides and Oregon. But the point is that all these schools that have a criteria or a focus, they are doing well. You're going to find out they're doing well. The schools that don't, that don't have no process. Even when you take a school to new schools, like both the Bennetts, those schools are doing super well. Bennett used to be one of the dumping grounds. It got closed. That's why those schools are there. Those schools are there because we brought a case against the district to have them shut down Bennett and shut down Lafayette, shut down these schools that were perpetually failing, and they replaced them with new schools, and those new schools are doing great, right? Mm-hmm. That's another important historical context, right? So, but they specialize in something. Mm-hmm. Morphing that you're talking about goes back to the late 90s, where we took out all of those, the vocations out of those schools.
Yeah.
See, what it morphed from is all those, Burgard was a specialty there. Seneca was a specialty there. McKillica was a specialty there. So, you learn something, that you can go out into society,
right,
and you can exchange that, for a living, right?
Right.
So it morphed when it became just this academic, everybody get a Regents diploma, so everybody can go to college. You know what I'm saying? And that morphing had a huge impact on who we are today, right? Mm-hmm. And so now, if we don't acknowledge that was a bad decision, putting all those vocations out in BOCES, where, now people in the suburbs, even if they don't get a good education, they get a good career. You know what I'm saying? And some of those careers are better than people get going to education.
Man, and you don't have the debt, Sam.
Say that again. That's worth it by itself.
It is a lifetime of debt that many of these young people are going into.
I heard a woman in a group I was in recently saying, she said, I make six figures. She said, I make six figures, but it don't mean nothing because I'm in so much debt. I will not pay off my debt in my lifetime. I'm like,
250,000.
I'm like,
stuff
what?
like that. Yeah.
I said, wait a minute. Wait. She said, it don't mean, she said, I'm still living poor, even though I got a six-figure job. It's the debt is so deep that and the interest on the debt is such that, and that at the end of the day, it don't mean anything. I was like, wow. I mean, I paid off my student loan, so it's hard to mentally imagine that you're not going to, you make six figures, you're not going to pay off your loan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So she's saying this stuff that Biden is doing in relationship to the, trying to get rid of student debt. She said that's the difference in the quality of life for a whole group of people. A whole group of people, their quality of life is contingent on not being buried in that debt that you talked about.
Well, it's interesting. I'm marrying a couple today. And one of the things we talked about is their student loans. And they've got large debt. They got good jobs, but they got a lot of debt.
Wow. It is interesting because on the next show, we're going to talk about one of the impacts of the sports mobile betting. You know what I'm saying? The record numbers they making and the $2 billion being spent on the Final Four that's going on right now. But the point is,
man, did you see that call last night? Oh my goodness. Well, I won't
we can't
go
get
there.
digress, right?
Yeah.
But the point is that even as the people who can at least afford it are the people that's gambling the most, right? Yeah. And so consequently, even though they got good
looking
jobs,
for an easy way out,
they have a decent job, you know what I'm saying? All the money they make is really just going back. And it's the same thing even with people who got the super debt, right? You got a good job, but at the end of the day, you in slavery. You in slavery to that debt, you know what I'm saying? And people who ain't in slavery to the debt, they get in slavery to trying to get rich quick.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And here's the thing that they did with that debt, Sam. You can't file bankruptcy on it. There's no way of getting rid of it. I mean, you can file bankruptcy on everything else, but you can't file bankruptcy on student debt. Man. It's a killer, bro. Listen. Well, we're going to take a phone call right quick, and then we're going to get into the data. Okay. Caller, are you there?
Yes, Pete. I'm loving the show. I just want to add something to what we all have been communicating for the last few years, and I want to talk about building trade, skills trade, and it ties into what you all just talked about.
Absolutely.
Education shifting and going to BOCES. The city of Buffalo is the second largest school district in New York State, and without having a contract with BOCES, many of our children, most of the children who are in the city, I'll just say it that way, they don't have access to the skilled trades unless they went to McKinley High School, and only a portion of the students at McKinley are able to get into the trade. So with all of these living wage, not minimum wage and not good jobs, living wage jobs with benefits, people can access this after high school if you have the prerequisites. If the educational pathway is not there, the city of Buffalo, where the majority of our people are, will never have the credentials to come in early. That means you got to spend another 4 or 5 years trying to make it happen. 4 or 5 years in the streets don't work good for us.
Right.
So, I'm giving thanks that this administration, with the Carpenters Union, we have a program right now at McKinley where we have high school students from like 5 different schools who are going to get brought directly into the union when they graduate as all of this work is coming. And we want to show this pilot that if we give the young people opportunities, they can make living choices, which stops poverty at 18 and 19 years old. So thank you. I want to hear the data, but you have to give credit that you all are following it and you're laying out the history. That whole Sankofa, we don't understand where we are unless we understand what really happened, and you all are laying it out. So thank you.
Thank you, Jomo, for all that you're doing, man.
And I think that's a really important point, which goes to the second point that, I think is important for people to understand the historical concept, understand the significance of the work of the Urban Think Tank. And the reason why people, it's a behind-the-scenes thing that people don't understand is driving, having been part of it prior to the Urban Think Tank. I've been part of this thing for 30 years, right? So I know what happens when you get a group of people who come in and who's willing to objectively call it what it is and push the system. So, for example, now we went through a infrastructure change to the Board of Education elections, right? So the elections was locked in where the Board of Education was going to be the same people perpetually until we almost surgically, you know what I'm saying, went through a process to be able to say, okay, for the next generation, I mean, this wasn't something we did all in 1 year. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we look at that over a period of time, right? And saying, so we got to deal with this issue with the board of elections.
Because it was in May.
And you had 1,000 people deciding who's going to vote on $1 billion budget.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And so
plus,
we went from an average of 1,000 people to an average of 10,000 people voting in an election. You know what I'm saying? And this will be the first at-large election, with the moving the date. Then we dealt with the fact that a board member only get compensated $5,000. The same thing since 1972. Now that's all the way up to $28,000. You know what I'm saying? That makes it to be where you don't have to be retired or somebody who have independently wealthy to be able to be on a board member. A person could reasonably give 20, 30 hours a week to it, for that $28,000. Then we dealt with, the fact that how you even get on the board, on the number of signatures you need to get on the board. That's changed. So now you only need, for a citywide election, you only need 400 signatures instead of 1,000 signatures, and they can be any party, Democrat, Republican, Independent. So these are infrastructure changes that's going to, over the long term, make a pathway for other people besides people controlled by the union to be part of that conversation. That's important. We push this conversation around. We focus it in. We ain't just wanting our kids to graduate, right? We want our kids to graduate college and career ready, and we want them to read, write, do math on grade level. So a group of people behind the scenes pushing this agenda, right? So now this agenda is led to this partnership with the University of Buffalo, where now they're engaged with this tutoring program to help kids be able to read, write, and graduate on grade level. They're engaged in this conference that we're doing, that you talked about, where we're going to make things student-centered. You know what I'm saying? So, but there's a group of people, not a large group of people, enough of the people, the right people, who come together that's driving the conversation that's bringing about change. When the change comes, people ain't going to remember. They ain't going to have a context. They just go, things just changed. No. Things morphed. You know what I'm saying? They morphed the wrong direction, and we don't know who was there making that happen. This is, we morphing things back in the right direction.
Yes.
It's taking time, but it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And Sam, this is such a big shift when you talk about education, trying to turn it. It doesn't turn overnight. It takes time, but you got to keep going at it. You got to keep going at it. You got to keep being persistent and consistent and determined in the goals and objectives that you're trying to reach. And our goal and objective, shout out to my big brother, William Gillison,
Amen.
Who said over and over again, we want our children to read and write and do math on grade level and graduate college and career ready. Yeah. That's been our focus, laser focus.
So, but look at what would have happened if we wouldn't have brought them stakeholders into the conversation. Those key stakeholders, the minute that those folks got to the table and looked at what's going on, I remember when Pastor Gillison said, well, we talking about all the other stuff, but what's this third grade statistic? If they can't read by third grade, this is what it's all started. He said, so why don't we focus there? Why don't we focus on this third grade statistic? You know what I'm saying? How do they get the third grade not being able to read, write, and do math on grade level, right? And then when you go look at the research says, the scientists say this. The scientists say that with the proper supports, 95% of all children should be able to read by the end of first grade. That's what it should be, right? Now, the reason why they can't, I'm saying, is the underlying problem. But again, it's like you said, you have to have a group of dedicated people who's willing to commit for the long term, who's willing to sacrifice in the short term, to benefit people over the long term. And so, so that's a part of the story. This is not magic. I mean, I remember when I was involved with the nonviolence, the whole civil rights movement. I came in, and I worked for the Martin Luther King Institute Commission for Nonviolence for 10 years. And so I was working with a lot of those people who were part of the civil rights movement. But I remember when they began to teach me about the things that was going on behind the scenes that people didn't know. Like, for example, in Montgomery, Alabama, that Rosa Parks wasn't the first person to sit at the back of the bus.
Right. There was a couple young ladies, but they didn't fit the particular model that they needed.
Right, but they didn't know about Edie Nixon, she was his secretary. You know what I'm saying? And Edie Nixon had been looking for a case that he can bring. So they have been putting together the infrastructure to execute a strategy to confront what was going on. So you don't hear about that. You hear one day her feet got tired, and so you hear the surface story. Right. But it's really a group of dedicated, in this case, a group of dedicated ministers and SCLC.
And was strategic, yeah.
Strategic, planned, organized, brought lawsuits, and brought about a change. That's how change happens.
And it's interesting because at the leadership conference, Andrew Young was there. He's 92 years old. And it was amazing, man, to hear this man talk. I mean, people look at it, everybody. Atlanta is something that for black folks, we've never seen before.
Yeah, Mecca.
It is just unbelievable. Right. The economic that is happening. But all that started by some preachers.
There you go.
And one of the things that they did, Russell's construction, they told Russell, they said, listen, you can't protest. We need you to be in business because when we go to jail, we need you to have the money to bail us out.
Yeah.
And when they did Hartsfield Airport, Russell Construction built that.
And they put them on the national stage because when we built our rapid transit system,
absolutely,
the minority general contractor was Russell Construction.
Yeah,
that's how the level they brought them to.
So they were strategic about it, and one of the things that we're really challenged with in the black community, and I've been concerned about this since I came back to Buffalo in 1990. I remember Tony Masiello was on WBN, one of the 930, and I called in. This was back in 1990. I just got back, and I said, why isn't anybody talking about the brain drain that is happening in Buffalo and how it's going to impact the future? And here's the problem that we have, Sam. Now, in the white community, many of their children are coming back. They went away, they did well. Now they're coming back because they recognize this is a great place to be.
They see the opportunity.
Yeah, and you got all the amenities of a big city with, the advantages of being in a small city. And so, when that 25% of our children that are graduating college and career ready, they're not staying here.
Right.
They're not staying here. They're going away to college, and they don't come back.
Because if you want to live in a black community, if you want to live in a community of your peers in that context, it's hard to do that in Western New York. I mean, the black community is concentrated poverty, right? And it's a hard place to raise your children at. I mean, it's doable, but it's a difficult lift.
You gotta be willing to sacrifice. You gotta and that's the thing that has to be seen is that there has to be those that will sacrifice, because without that, those preachers sacrifice.
Exactly.
Atlanta is what it is today because some folks sacrifice. Janique on Facebook said, shout out to the Biden administration, because she said her debt was forgiven, and so therefore it's now giving her a different outlook on the rest of her life.
Amen.
Yeah.
And that's a real conversation. And so, I want to go back to the point that you're making about the sacrifice and the need for the sacrifice, because this is really what this is coming to, Bishop. If nobody's willing to make these sacrifices to the point that, you come out of COVID, you know what I'm saying, and you were doing it before then, but you come out of COVID and you make a decision to pull together the people who was capable of being able to do something now. Right, was not in a position where they could be compromised in a sense, and say, I'm actually going to make a sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? In the beginning it was every other week. You know what I'm saying? To look at what's happening in our community, look at what's happening to our kids, and let's do something about it. Let's not just talk about it, let's do something about it. But if nobody does that, Bishop, we just the things that we're talking about that are moving forward today, those things don't happen if somebody don't make that sacrifice.
That's right. And I refuse to give up on my city. I refuse to move. I'm going to be right here, and I'm going to use whatever voice I have to make a difference. And I just believe in this city. And whenever I go somewhere else and they ask me where I'm from, I don't say New York, like New York State. No, I'm from Buffalo, New York, right?
Okay, yes, sir.
And then because a lot of people have never been to New York, they think it's one of the boroughs.
Right.
No, I said I'm from upstate. I'm near Niagara Falls.
Yeah.
We in the country.
Yeah, the whole
but
yeah,
but and I'm proud to be from Buffalo. So and I just think that we've got to be strategic in making a difference so that we can keep some of these young people. And my hope is that some of them will come back, but
we need more people to be involved with being willing to make that sacrifice. And listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not judging people who don't. Listen, you got your kids, you got your family. You only got one opportunity to raise your kids.
Yeah.
And
I get it. I had the opportunity to go away, and for 7 years I was in Charlotte. So I
Yeah.
And I just think people, you should have that ability to experience that.
But some people gonna have to make the sacrifice, because if people who have the capacity and the means, if nobody makes the sacrifice, you know what I'm saying? Then you condemning a generation to concentrated poverty, and they all just react to each other. You have to have people who have some capacity and some willingness to see what's going on and do the things that's gonna make a difference.
Well, let's shift.
Okay.
To the data.
All right. So in the Buffalo News today, there's a front page article.
Yeah.
The front page article is really talking about the graduation rates. All right. So it's basically saying that Buffalo's graduation rate has went up. You know what I'm saying? Actually, it's saying it's the focus is this year is on on South Park, right? So South Park 15 years ago, had a graduation rate of 39%. Think about that. I mean, wow. But the district's graduation rate back then was 44%. You know what I'm saying? The overall district graduation
Well, let me ask you this. Okay, 39%. What was the quality of those graduating, though?
Now, that's an interesting point, Bishop. Who asked that question? Seriously, think about that. Think about that question, right? So we only had 40% of the kids graduating, but was those 40% that did graduate, were they actually ready for college and career?
Right.
And the answer is yes. The answer is that the quality of those graduates, because then they wouldn't just give out diplomas.
Right.
If
you had to earn it.
Yeah, if you didn't earn the diploma, you didn't get it, right? So the people that had it, you can count on the fact that they was ready for college, they was ready for, career, right? But now, you know what I'm saying, South Park, you know what I'm saying, after, you went from 39% 15 years ago to, for the last 3 years, South Park has set a new bottom benchmark for each of the last 3 years, capped out 87% graduation rate in 2023. They have gone up for the last 3 years. So South Park has really become a different school. The Erie County's graduation rate, the average is 88.6. Niagara County is 87.4. And so for South Park to get to a place where now it is with the county average, you know what I'm saying, is a long journey from where it's been, right? Now, having said that, there are people who saying when we look at Buffalo's overall graduation rate, which is 79%, right? And it's been 79% kind of held a steady for the last 3 years. It went up from, it was, if you go back to, 15 years ago, it was 44%. And then it starts going up, year after year to where it went to 50, 60, 65. Then all of a sudden we had a huge jump, once COVID came. You know what I'm saying? When COVID came, we went from
nobody taking tests. We just gonna give you a diploma. Everybody get a trophy.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And that jumped us all the way up to 79%, and we kind of leveled off there. You know what I'm saying? We haven't, gone up. But let me make 2 points that I think is really important. I'm quoting now the chancellor of the state education department. The frustration was shared by State Board of Regents Chancellor Lester Young, who acknowledged the significant number of New York high school graduates who drop out college in their first year. He said, essentially he's saying, I'm happy that we got a higher graduation rate, but at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything because when these kids go to college, they realize that this high school diploma didn't prepare them
And they're
for
taking
college.
remedial courses, spending money that means nothing, and they're going to be in debt, and they drop out and don't get a degree.
And here's what happened, Bishop. They're not even taking remedial courses like that anymore because now the schools said, listen, they got what's happening. Kids was using up their financial aid to take the remedial courses.
Wow.
So what they did is they put the remedial course in with the first level college course, right? So that the kids they wasn't being accused of, draining off the kid, putting the kid in more debt, right? So they combined them a lot, especially at the community college level, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day,
they're gonna drop out because they can't do the work.
They just can't do the work.
They can't do the work.
Then if you go look at the Buffalo Niagara Partnership and you listen to the data they put out, they talking to employers when these kids come out and they saying, listen, the employer said that I have to retrain all these people. I'm spending dollars training people who are coming in. They should have the minimum qualifications if they have a high school diploma. Right. They just simply don't. Right. They don't have the academic capacity to do these jobs, and they don't have the social emotional capacity to do these jobs. So we have to go through a whole dedication of resources to train people who should be coming out trained.
And I see that with Green Force, with Verdi. Parente over on Delavan. Shout out to John Williams because he recognized, the product that was coming out of school, but he wanted to see these people employed. So he started Green Force, which is a non-for-profit that works as preparing, employees to be able to go into the workforce. And it's been pretty successful. 88% of those that have been hired, they stay on.
But the fact that you have to have a Green Force,
right?
He can't hire someone. He have to literally spend money to create a not-for-profit part of this for-profit company that prepare an employee to be an employee.
And see, that's why I said this issue of transparency is going to be big, Sam, because people, when you are transparent, what's going to happen is it's going to make people very angry. But that's fine, as long as that anger turns into action. Because when people really understand how bad it is, folks, it is a crisis.
Right.
It is a crisis. We are in the emergency room on life support. A prime example, Sam, is Northland Workforce.
Right.
600 of seniors that applied to go into that program that we spent $40+ million, beautiful facility. Those 600 graduates, none of them could qualify.
Not one.
To get into the program. And so they had to eliminate the requirements.
Exactly. Just the same thing that college did, saying I got to eliminate the remedial course. At the end of the day, people are saying it's a waste of time. Or what Green Force is saying, listen, I got to stop expecting kids to come prepared, and I got to just prepare them when they get here. Everybody has basically gave up on some level on counting on the school system to do that, which in New York State, I think is a tragedy because we spend the most to educate than anybody else. So to spend that kind of money to educate and then basically have colleges say, listen, I got to figure out a way to prepare them when they get here. To have employers say, I got to figure out a way to, why don't we all focus in on how we fix the education system so we don't have to spend these additional resources when they get to college and career?
Well, and see, there has to be a reality check brought to education. Because you cannot just say that the reason why these children are not learning is because of parents and children that are that won't behave. Okay, the bottom line is this: you are an educational system. It is up to the professionals to figure out how you educate. You can't keep blaming the customer.
But think about the confusion you get when the professionals are the ones who telling you that, listen, look at my graduation rates. See, the professionals, the people that they're making a system to look like, for people who looking at just the data, look like things are better than what they are. I'm going to read something.
Right. That's why transparency is going to be so important.
I agree. It says one of the possible reasons higher graduation rates, for higher graduation rates, the Education Trust cited was Regents exam exemptions from June 2022 to August 2023. Allowed any student scoring a 50 to 64% on the state test a chance to receive credit if the student passed on the class. Pass the class on the subject. So if you pass the class, it didn't matter if you passed the exam or not, you'll be allowed to get a diploma. The Ed Trust was disappointed that the State Education Department did not disclose how many of the 2023 graduates benefited from exemptions. Niagara Falls Superintendent acknowledged exemption boosted the district's rate. I will be lying to say that COVID regulations didn't hurt, said Superintendent Lurie. But the COVID times were really hard. So they went on to just talk about that these numbers show these big jumps. And it's mostly because they didn't have to take the exam.
Right, but pre-COVID, the numbers were bad. Pre-COVID is the 600 graduates at Northland Workforce.
You're right
That's
about that.
pre-COVID.
That's pre-COVID. And they also talk about, interestingly, that this graduation class, their first 2 years, they was in remote instruction. This 2023 graduation class, this is the graduation class that started in remote instruction. So to try to tell us that all these terrible things happening in remote instruction, kids didn't learn, they fell further behind, and got all the data to prove it, then to say, but they graduated. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, but they graduated, and we know that they are not ready for college and career. But here's the bigger point, and I think this is really critical to say. The person that we're hurting the most is the student themselves. Because they got a high school diploma, and then they go out into the workforce.
Well, it's not just the student, Sam. We're hurting ourselves. These are the folks that are going to take care of you. You know what I'm saying? These are the people that are going to police you. These are the people when you need an ambulance are going to be the EMTs. You know, the CNAs.
And I agree with you. So society pays the price, but imagine being that person. You got a high school diploma. You know, I didn't drop out. I finished. I got a high school diploma. You go out and you apply for a job, and you just.
But they know that. I mean, to their own self be true, right? These kids know that they're not ready.
But these professionals that you just talked about designed a system and gave him his diploma and said to him, "We're saying that you graduated, you finished the minimum requirements to be able to be a, you know." So the adults basically told him that you're good to go.
Here's the interesting thing, Sam. In Atlanta, black educators went to jail for pretty much the same thing.
Yes, they did. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a
good point.
Yeah. See, I'm all about transparency because we this system. If it's not radically changed, will never be able to produce what we need in society. That's the reality of where we're at.
Yeah, and I think it's important to put that into context. I think this system, and when you talk about large urban school districts,
yes,
for people with low income, for poor people, because people with means don't count on that system to do that. You know what I'm saying? This is how important, why this program that we're doing around tutoring is so important. Mm-hmm. People with means, even when their kids go to a good school, they get them tutoring. You know what I mean? They put them in a pipeline to get them to, get them to be college and career ready. They intent on them being college and career ready. So people who have figured out. What we got to do is get more people to figure it out.
Let's take a phone call.
Let me just say this real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Terry McKelvey's in there. He said Atlanta's Mayor Maynard Jackson boosted the opportunities in Atlanta by compelling the Board of Education and city contracts to go to minority contractors. That was the major boost.
And it had teeth with it. It had intentions. It had intentions. See, we got all of those things in writing, but there's no intentionality behind it.
And you would think you got a black superintendent, you got a black mayor, you got a majority black school. Well, the infrastructure that Atlanta had in place, we at least appear to have that.
It'd be interesting to find out right now what the amount of MBE participation is in the $1 billion budget that the board has.
It'd be interesting. Probably less than 1%. But I mean, let me just make this last point. I think it's also probably important to know that Atlanta had, because they historically had invested in education early. They had all these colleges, so they had a workforce of educated, black people that could come in there and fill those positions.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's go to our phone line. Caller, you on the air.
Hello?
Yes, you're on the air.
Oh, yes. Oh, good morning. God bless y'all this morning.
Good morning, Pat.
You know, this is why this show is so important. You'd be surprised that the people are listening to this show. I meet people all the time, and they know I'm a people's person, so they don't mind talking to me about certain things that you guys be talking about it. And God bless Pastor Giverson soul.
Amen.
You know, if you guys, I know, Sam, you've been on that battlefield. You and Lord Hargrave and a few others for a long time trying to get this thing right. But for the thing that y'all got, what is it?
Urban Think Tank.
Urban Think Tank, yeah. The Urban Think Tank. Y'all is watching out for us and telling us what's going on. And I'm listening. I mean, I don't know that much, but I'm interested, and I thank God for y'all for coming out here, giving us the update. We might be a little delayed on certain reasons why we didn't have enough people involved and parents involved in, but I thank God that we on the right road now. So y'all keep up the good work. And y'all inspired me and a lot of other people, because a lot of people don't call in on the show, but they are listening. Keep up the good work. God bless y'all.
You know, as Pat was talking, it reminded me of something that the Urban Think Tank was involved behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. And I just saw Melanie Baker last Saturday. Right. But you remember how the nursing program, mm-hmm. very few minorities in it. We had to go to Villa Maria, not Villa Maria, but overall. Trocaire or Duville, you know, and spend buku dollars, get hugely in debt because we couldn't get into ECC. Right. And Dr. Baker, Melody, on the board, began to talk about that.
That's right.
And then she got pushback. That's right. From the head. From the nursing department, who wrote a letter to try to get her off of the board. That's right. We then responded to that, to the governor, to the other folks that are in power. Because of our pushback, that person left.
That's right. And she stayed on the board.
She stayed on the board. To the nursing department. And now those blacks that want to be RNs making over $100,000 a year, you're not going to come out with the same student debt that you would have. That is the Urban Think Tank.
There you go. And think about how significant that is. Here it is, you got a minority woman on the board of trustees at ECC who's doing the right thing.
Yes.
She's calling out the problem.
Yeah.
And then people are going to offend it. Right. How dare you? Right. Question how we dealing with minority students. You know what I'm saying? We this, we that, blah, blah. She said at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? Here's what's happening with the black people in this program. Right. Here's what's going on. And she called it out and she, go ahead.
And had we not pushed back, woo, I don't think Mel would have survived.
Oh, no question about it. She was, they was gunning for her. You know what I'm saying? And it's so interesting because in gunning for her, they exposed themselves. Right. But because we had a group of people that include lawyers and administrators and clergy and people who understand that language, you know what I'm saying? Right. Who said, wait, let's look at this thing. So when we write a letter, when we talk to the governor and the board of trustees, it's people, when you have the Down Elmore and Timmy, these are top lawyers, you know what I'm saying? This ain't just anybody, right. You know what I'm saying? Former trustee of ECC. And the administrator has said, so when you get these people involved and say, wait a minute, okay, let's have this conversation. That nursing, the head of the department, she ain't bullying nobody. Right. You know what I'm saying? So if you got a group of people that can come to the table and stand up for Dr. Baker and say, no, let's just listen to her. Is what she's saying correct? Right. And everybody said, well, yeah, what she's saying is correct, but that makes us look bad when you say that. What are we talking about? This is the same issue you're raising right now. People get so caught up with how they look that they don't want to be transparent. Right. And so they don't want to, so people got angry because she was putting out the correct data.
Right. And now, not only the sister that is now the president.
Amen.
Urban Think Tank was involved in that to advocate for her to get that position, and so there's a lot of things, the 3 Bell system, Urban Think Tank,
John Walker. We go back. We go back and start keeping track of all that stuff. The system with to get you the little tickets when you get pulled over. And right. It's been a lot, and this is only 3 years, 2 years, 3 years.
You're going on third year.
Yeah, 3 years. It's been impactful. You know what I'm saying? But my point is,
no, absolutely. But when she called in, it dawned on me, and we've been talking about how much people are in debt. I mean, there are going to be people that are going to graduate from ECC and become RNs that will have maybe $5,000-$10,000 in debt instead of $100,000. Yeah. You know, and the reason why is because there were some people behind the scenes pushing that you will never know their names.
Exactly. Never know. And never know what role they played to get that thing advanced. But God put them in position to be able to, do what needed to be done to help some of our people.
And it ain't about knowing our names. This is about the work. Now, let's take another phone call. Caller, you on the air.
All right. I just cheated. I called it again. But I'm celebrating Black History Month. And I'm celebrating Women's History Month. So putting the history together, the person who prosecuted the cheating educators in Atlanta is Fannie Willis. And Fannie Willis is the one that's also working on crimes right now that has systematically hurt and intimidated our people. So I know you said you don't want to say the names because you all are humble. We should say the names of people so that people know the value of those who are fighting for them so that we're not confused. We have to tell our history, and what you all are doing is important. Name the people in their work. You ain't got to boast on yourself. Talk about somebody else. But our community needs to know who's fighting for them so that we're clear. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Jomo. Appreciate you, man. It's been interesting, Sam, to just see, and it's not a lot of people. Last week, shout out to the folks that came out last week to support Pastor McAllister. I don't know how many people would have showed up had it not been on this program.
Amen.
You know what I'm saying? This program and voicing, saying, and I talked to some other pastors, some significant pastors, say, no, we're not going to let this go down like that.
Amen.
I talked to Bishop Pritchett. He was like, "Man, listen, no, we're not going to let that happen like that." And so it is when information is power. Somebody's got to be willing, though, to step out there and say, you know what? I'm willing to say what other people won't say. Here's the reason why I can say what I say is because I got a church that will support me. Amen. That's why the pastor has always been the voice in our community, because it's been the only independent voice that we support that's not connected to something that you're criticizing.
That's right. And that's why it's critical to have that leadership come out of the clergy, because they do have the independent voice, and because in a portion of the urban think tank is clergy, because they can say things that certain people in professional positions, their job, their family, their careers on the line if they put certain information out.
Can't do it.
Look at Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker, she just raised the facts, right?
Right.
But they went for her neck. They were like, okay, you don't get to talk like that. And if she didn't have a group of people that can come and say, hold up, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at what's happening here, and people that had to be respected. People you couldn't just bully.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. You know what I'm saying? Then you get a second viewing of what's going on, and her trustee board supports her, the governor supports her, because she's appointed to there by the governor. Right. That's what they were trying to get her knocked off by the governor. Right. You know what I'm saying? And the governor stood behind her, because we wouldn't have stood and made sure the governor would be clear that this is the facts. You know what I'm saying? And we support her.
And here's the thing, Sam, you make just such a great point, because, what on the urban think tank, the people that you have on it, like a John Elmore, a Terry McKelvey, a Nate Hare, who's retired now. So Nate doesn't have, and so Terry and John, for instance, they can do what they do because independently now they make enough money because of the support of this community.
Amen.
Right?
Yep.
John is taking care of case right now with my wife. Because of the support of this community, they're able to be independent enough to then speak to power or be able to participate because of that.
But they're also willing to do it.
And absolutely. But you can be willing, but if you don't have the resources, You see what I'm saying? It limits you.
But sometimes you can have the resources, and because you got the resources, you're not willing. You know what I'm saying? You try to protect those resources.
Right.
You're not willing to put that at risk. You know what I'm saying? So they got enough trust and confidence as, the pastors who do it, the lawyers who do it, the administrators, people, because they know at the end of the day that they're going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? They trust in a power higher than what the society can do to them.
Got a shout out to Dr. Pointer.
Yeah, Dr.
Pointer. Yes, I'm so proud of this brother. Sir. He is one of the brilliant minds of our time. This man is one of the smartest men I've ever met. And I just want to shout out to my brother. He finished his doctoral, did his thesis. And so, here again, part of the urban think tank, part of the task force on health.
Been instrumental in how we build that bridge of getting one of the largest research universities this side of the Mississippi integrated into having impact in this community. And
the medical school.
Yes, sir.
The amount of black doctors that are coming out is directly in correlation to the work that Dr. Pointer is doing.
Yeah. He's doing great work.
Yeah. So it is amazing to see, what, and I agree with you, Jomo. We need to shout out to some of these men and women that are in our community that are doing things that are making a difference. It's not just happening by osmosis. There's an intentionality there that is making change in our community. And so we're looking at this glass, and this glass is half full. It's not half empty. And we believe that as we continue to work, our cup is going to run over. and so I just want to say to those that are in the community that are fighting, that there are voices still that are being lifted up that says, hey, our community matters, our children matter, our education system matters. And so, we're in a different space, Sam.
Yeah.
We're in a different space.
No ifs, ands, or buts about it, man. And I think Jomo's point is really important. We have to, be clear for history purposes so people in the community know. Yeah. I was talking to a group of young people the day before yesterday, and they didn't know who Constance Eve was.
The funerals today.
Yeah, they didn't know who Florence Ball was. These people who had a huge impact.
Women of dignity. Come on, man.
Women, human rights, and dignity. So you got a generation, and back then you didn't have social media.
Dignity Circle. Those houses over there. That's Constance Eve.
Yeah. And she was the wife of the deputy speaker, but she had her own force. The number of people she touched as a professor of ECC, even still. So many things, but but we have to say the names and what they've done so people understand that this is stuff that didn't happen by magic. Yeah. People made sacrifices so that there's a foundation that you're standing on.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
You stand on somebody's shoulders.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. You have some accountability to that. Yeah. You have some accountability to make it better than you found, to build on what was done before you. And it's important to know some of those names of those people.
I tell you, one of the most important names that when we come to the educational space is Samuel Radford. Because without this brother, listen, what's happening in education as it pertains to the urban think tank and what we've been involved with, without Sam's historical knowledge, without his leadership, without his brilliance, there's no way this would be happening. Well, and so I need to say that. When I met Sam, I don't know, but maybe it's about 15 years ago now, in my office, I was so impressed by this brother's vision and determination and love for his community that I said, man, I need you to come on my program and just share once a month, and that's how
here we are 15 years later.
Here we are.
Yeah,
here we are.
And to God be the glory, but I want to make it clear that there's no Sam Radford in this education space without Lloyd Hargrave.
Man, my man Lloyd.
Yeah, and I'm talking about that's as real as it gets. Yeah. So you have to acknowledge I'm building on something. Yeah. I wasn't able to do what I do without Without that 50 years of knowledge.
I wish you could be here now just to see some of the things that are happening.
Especially over at Bennett. Yeah. I'm looking at the Bennett numbers. I'm saying, that's Lloyd.
He's a Bennett graduate. Yeah.
No, not just that he a Bennett graduate. The lawsuit that we brought to close that school and to open up those 2 new schools that are doing wonderful. They both got, look at
my grandson, by the way, goes there. Shout out to little Mario, who played basketball and football, and he's only a freshman. He was starting playing basketball, so we're really proud of him.
But when you look at the data at that school, both of those schools over at Bennett, it's so impressive. And without Lloyd, they said essentially the 91% graduation rate for Black and African Americans at Bennett Innovative Tech. At Bennett Research Lab, 95% graduation rate for economically disadvantaged students is the 5th highest, right? This is at a school they told us when we went to bring the lawsuit that led to that closing of that school and creating a new school, they said the state education department said you can't do that. Lloyd Hargrave, the only one, said they wrong. I was in the room when we wrote the law, you know what I'm saying, that gives us the ability to do that. Appeal it to the feds. We appealed it to the feds. They overturned the state education department and said, y'all got to shut them schools down and open up new schools in good standing. People don't know that absent Lloyd Hargrave, that does not happen.
Wow.
It just don't happen. So you're looking at the benefit of it, and you don't know the moment in time that led to it happening. I was there at the table. I know it was over. State education department ruled. They said, listen, there's nowhere to send those kids who go to these failing schools to. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So you just have to live with that. He said, no. Because, and it's so interesting because I know I'm following his footsteps this week. This week, I'm going to the White House, right? I'm going to visit with the Secretary of Education, and then I'm going to meet with the Domestic Policy Council, right? And so I know, I understand what he means. When you're in the room and you're talking about how are we going to do this legislation to be able to impact, so then you can come back down on the ground and say, yeah, I know what to say. So I'm at the table.
Sam said he going to the White House like I'm saying I'm going to McDonald's. Man, come on!
Yeah. So,
look at God.
That's Lloyd Hargrave, though.
Yeah,
that's the foundation he laid. So now I'm in those circles, and so when they get ready to do something on a national level, they pull us into the conversation to design how it's going to be going forward.
Well, Sam, listen, man, we're out of time, but not out of conversation. This has been just great conversation. Shout out to the Hargrave family. That's my family, you know, and that was my man. Lloyd was with me as I tried to do the ACE school.
That's right.
I mean, every step of the way.
Yes,
and so he's dearly missed. Listen, just want to invite you out tomorrow, 1365 Main Street, 10 a.m. We'll be ministering. We're talking about the Sabbath, man. Listen, there's a rest for the people of God. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great time. Sam, really appreciate you, man. All that you're doing. Until next week.
It don't happen without you, Bishop, either. Well, so it's just, to God be the glory, brother.
Man, I love doing what I do. Until next week, this is Bishop Michael E. Badger, Senior Pastor of Bethesda World Harvest International Church. And beside me is
Brother Sam.
And we say peace. All right, would you share this? And we'll see you on next week. God bless.